Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Matchbook Horse Racing Podcast, Cheltenham Handicap Specials. Not just handicaps either. We're going to be looking at the other races we haven't covered as far as the Grade 1s go. Joined by Micheál, Deasy, Matchbook's own, Matt Toombs, self-confessed, everyone knows Cheltenham expert, a young Duncan Ferguson, Dan Overall, and the man that's trying to do an impression of Micheál, Deasy, Steve Jones with that haircut. Welcome along, everyone. If my Wi-Fi does drop in and out, blame Racing TV because that's where I am, but hopefully we'll be all right. A reminder, we've got double the odds on the podcast best bets, more best bets today. This is for new customers only. You've got to use the bonus code podcast when signing up. Any best bet we put up, if you haven't got a Matchbook account, open a Matchbook account because it is the best way to support the podcast. If you like our content and back one of the best bets, you get double the odds, extra winnings up to £50 in cash. 18 plus BeGambleAware, T's and C's apply. Like and comment with Cheltenham during the recording or post-recording to win a £50 free bet. This is existing customers only, so you've got to have a Matchbook account. Cheltenham Trends, Matt Toombs is with us. His articles are all up online. Are you done, Toombs? Are there any more to go up, or is that it?
No, that's it. 5 up there.
Excellent. And they're very insightful. Loads on the watering and the ground. And, well, that's certainly been a hot topic with the amount of rain that's forecast. So head to our insights area for all of the Matt Toombs articles that are up there. Anything else you want to know about Cheltenham will all be in there. Okay, handicaps. First handicap of the meeting is the Ultima. So rather than run you through prices, we'll just give the prices as they get put up. As ever, we're going to start off with a trend for this race. We won't be doing it like that for every race, but it's worth betting the trend in for this race because it's the first one we're doing. So over to you with that in mind, Matt Toombs.
So the trend is that every winner this century had run over at least 3 miles over fences. 9 had run over a marathon trip. That's 3 miles, 3 furlongs or further. And the point here is that this is usually the first ride of the meeting for about 3/4 of the jockeys. The adrenaline pumping through their veins. They often go too quickly. So this becomes a real test of stamina at the trip. And every year, horses line up with flashy profiles, having been running over short and intermediate trips. Punters latch onto them as improvers at 3 miles, and they don't get home. This year, the obvious one with the stamina doubt is Nassalan, who hasn't been beyond an extended 2-4 so far. I'd be keen to oppose him.
And you are going with last year's winner, not the only person to be doing that either, Matt.
Yeah, that's right. I suspect the ground's going to be slower this year. And he needed every minute of it last time. It just got there, sort of Red Sea open for him at the right time. I think with a bit more of a stamina test this year, horses who have a hold-up tactic are well favoured by this because of the nature of the race. And it's not an original selection, but I do think he's the right favourite and a good favourite.
What do you want to add to that, DC?
Nothing too much. He's not a great price now. He's favoured for a reason. He was very good last year. He's £6 more this year. I think if you put that £6 on his back last year, he probably would have still won it. He's a good, solid horse, and I can't see him out of the first 3 or 4 at the very least. And he is a win place price at the moment. So have a bit on the win and the place.
Why does it feel like to me, Dan Overall, and I might be plucking this out of thin rubbish air, that last year's renewal just didn't. I don't know whether I feel it was that strong. Maybe that's just the nature of the Ultima, where you can get these surprise British winners against maybe the Irish hot pots who disappoint. But I don't know. I didn't look at that race and go, "Whoa, what a belting renewal that was."
Or maybe because Oscar Elite was still bang there with a chance, and that would always be a big red flag for me. I really don't like that horse.
Wasn't he? Because of Frodon last year.
Yeah, he was out of the weights, as was Jericho Rock as well, who was 4th, who ran well in the Ladbroke Trophy thereafter. I think it was probably average renewal. I do think Correct Rambler was an extraordinary winner just based on the way he stormed through. But I don't know. I agree. I think it's pretty average. I wouldn't be overly critical of it, to be honest.
Who do you fancy then, and why?
It's kind of a long-term fancy, and it is ground dependent. I think you noted as much as well, Tom, that in Lord Accord, like he's going to need it on the quicker side. And obviously reports in recent days and the coming days to come about the rain forecast are somewhat murky. It would need to be good to soft at the slowest for him to have a chance. But he's been a long-term fancy of mine for this race. He won at the course in October when he probably wasn't necessarily thought it would suit him, given how he's run previously. But he was really impressive that day in what was admittedly a fairly weak race. It was the same race the conditional won the same season he won the Ultima. He really did hit the hill quite hard that day, which I think is always notable. Second to Frodon in the Badger Beers, where he should have probably been closer, but for clouting the last. Ran in the Ladbroke Trophy, probably a bit too much for him on a quick turnaround that day, but was been given the Druid's Nephew prep by going to the Cleve Hurdle, and Neil Mulholland did exactly the same with the Druid's Nephew. Untemps-Portu did the same on his second attempt, and when he won the Ultima for the second time. So it's a proven route to success. I still think there's room to work with at a mark of 137. It is just the issue of the ground. If it's good to soft or quicker, I think he's got a great chance. If not, his chance is probably gone.
I totally agree with that. Helen Sheridan says Lauder called the Druid's Nephew Mark II. Well, it is. I mean, he's following a very similar path, having run at Cheltenham, different meeting. I think one went in October, one went in November, I think. And then going on to the Cleve for all the Druid's Nephew, I think was 10-1 for the Cleve, whereas this horse was 66-1, no chance. But he's given a run for it. The ground's just so frustrating. Again, he's a bit of a long-term fancy of mine. He looked a spring horse, so he looks like a ground horse, and I just can't believe we're going to get that. So I don't know how you're approaching it, Dan, but I actually haven't backed him yet, and I'd want it to be no worse than good to soft on the day for me to back him. So it probably means I'm not going to back him.
Yeah, I mean, I've backed him in, I think, January before he ran in the Cleve, so I'm a bit stuffed, but it's one of those, this is the chance you take with anti-post punting, as we know.
You've got another one that ran in what I called a poor renewal last year. Why no one has said the Grand National winner ran in it, you dick, I don't know, but the Grand National winner did run in it. There you are. Jonesy, you like Oscar Elite?
Yeah, my best bet of the entire festival was in this race last year, and it was the Grand National winner, who's since won listed in grade. And if he was off this mark this time, he would be about 5s on. So thanks for that. Oscar Elite, he ran very well in it last year. He was third. He was caught very wide in it. He has got a bit of an inconsistent record because he's got a lot of problems, and it's just a horse that I think who's taken a long time to get over those problems. But he won very well last time, even though it was only a 3-runner race. You go back to his Chase debut, he would have, if he hadn't have fallen, I think it was 2 out of 3 out at Cheltenham, he would have beaten 3 under through 5. And does he know? And that's the kind of engine he's got. He shouldn't, although his best form on good ground over fences, he's got a couple of wins over on heavy ground over hurdles. So it was a horse with good course form who should run his race, in my opinion.
Daniel Hussey says, is Lucia at the Mares was said on Racing TV. Yeah, good one. I got icy and said that. I saw a picture that he'd put up potentially with the Racing Post. Yeah, announced that on Racing TV. There you go. Well done. Peter's Punt says, no love for Happy Go Lucky. Does anybody have anything to say on Happy Go Lucky? Speak now or forever hold your peace.
Yeah, I did consider him, but I think he's got a lot of weight for a horse that is getting on a bit these days and has also had problems. So he's had those 2 runs since missing 18 months. Excuse me. But he's another one that you can see running well, yeah. But I just got a lot of weight to lug around there, especially if it goes soft.
The yard are a bit quiet as well, which is just in the back of my mind. Does anybody know whether Fast or Slow is going to run here or in the plate? Because surely he goes for the plate, but the market in this for him has been pretty well held up. Anybody know anything about that?
Don't know anything for sure, but other than what you said, Tom, there was a big move for him for the Ultima earlier in the week. But like you, I mean, I backed him for the plate as well. I would be amazed if he turned up in the Ultima, but
he's never run over this
money for him.
It seems strange. No. Deasy, did you have another one? Come back.
Yeah, there we go. I've picked out 2 horses for most of the races because I don't know what the ground is, but I wanted to give this fella a shout. It's Cloudy Glen, Venetia Williams' horse. He's a big price there. I think he's about 25.0, 26.0, but he is good form at the festival before. He finished second behind Mount Ida there a few years ago, and in the Kim Muir. He probably could have qualified for Kim Muir, but he's entered in this. He had a nice warm up there at Haydock behind Quick Wave a few weeks ago. I can see him running a big race, and if you want something at a nice big price, because we've kind of tipped some of the head of the market there, I wouldn't put anyone off a bet on Cloudy Glen.
Okay, Matt, just on the ground, I feel like you not know the forecast better than anyone, but know where we're likely to be and how they tend to approach the ground. Certainly in recent years, you've done a big article on the watering, etc. What do you expect if the rain turns up? What do you think the ground is going to be for the festival?
I think it's going to be probably soft on the Tuesday. They put 30 mils on the other day. There's obviously all that high water table, which is what I was talking about in the article about being like a dual purpose course like Sandown, where they water the flat course in the summer. So much watering in the autumn. The high water table, 30 mils gone on, load of rain and snow now. For the last 5 years, we've started on soft or heavy. And I imagine the most likely scenario now is probably going to start on soft again. Just also when we get back to the new course, because that wasn't watered so heavily in the autumn, you might find that the ground's quite a bit quicker on that.
And that's what John Pullen said today on Racing TV, that it's definitely quite it's new course is slightly better at this stage, probably in keeping with the cross country course. So that's what we're expecting. Okay, we move on to the brutal Boodles. We've got 3 official selections for this. I'll kick off with your stat again, Matt, if I can, because I know you're putting nothing up as yet.
That's right. Yeah, the stat is that horses that began in French national hunt races are 7 from 79, 61% profit backing those. And that's about precocity, the advantage in a big field juvenile handicap hurdle of having started hurdling early. French 3-year-old hurdle season began earlier this week. Gasparo, Colando and Flying Tiger all run over hurdles in France the previous season. Flying Tiger wasn't even a novice. And horses learn over a period of time, not just from racecourse experience. I think effectively being second season hurdlers is a big plus here in terms of being battle hardened. A cynic might also argue that putting French hurdles form in front of the BHA handicappers makes it harder for them to assess the British or Irish form. Only Diego de Charmy has won, having had all his runs in France. So I'm sitting this out. But if you buy into the theory behind this trend, then Risk Bell looks a likely type.
All right, you have got a horse who had one race in France, Deasy, a Gordon Elliott runner.
Yeah, like this is insanely hard, and I had a look down along, and the one that kind of caught my eye was Jazzy Matty. I think he's going to be about 26.0 again. He started off the season behind. He finished behind Comfort Zone in November in a 3-year-old maiden hurdle in Navan, and he powered up the hill, but he was being bothered by a loose horse at times in it. Still kept going, and I mean, he finished ahead of Tikau that day. No, he might have been running to his meritus that day, but he won after that. He said to go off Blood Destiny in Fairy House again. He finished a good bit this and that, and then he ran in that race at Naas there, and I can't think of the name of them. I'm just getting it up there now. The one that's thrown up the winner the last 3 years. He finished 4th in that. Now he went off favour for that. He was beaten by Sir Alan, who came home absolutely flying home, and Biker was ahead of him as well. But he tried to make all in that race, and he was just I think caught short probably in the last 2 furlongs. He still stayed on. That was over just under 2 miles. Like, he's a massive price. Gordon Elliott has won this now with the likes of Venera Charm, you know, big price ones. I don't think you want to be looking in this kind of race. You want to be back at something at a double figure price. I mean, there's been a fair few shocks in it, like, and this is going to be a race with big place concessions in all the books. We'll be going to at least 7 places on this. So I'm going to probably play Jazzy Matty with a small win bet and then back him for 4, 5, and 6 places as well. There could have been a few more I put up as well, but he's the main one.
Yeah, my way of this always used to be to back the couple of outsiders of big yards in Ireland. So he could be on the list. I just wonder whether he's actually quick enough. But again, he's a big old price. So there you are, Steve.
Yeah, it's more passing on information, really. I went to see Ben Pauling the other day, and he's got a horse called Bad in there, who hasn't run in Britain yet, ran 3 times in France. So it's good to hear Matt's stat. And he was very impressive at Bordeaux back in November. He's only run at Bordeaux, funny enough, and he was an early starter, as they are in France. He ran on April Fool's Day last year, so he's been and Ben said that he thought he'd be very competitive in the Triumph Hurdle. and he thinks the British Handicap has made a mistake. He's been very well backed, so that's as good as I thought. Really, so bad. In Ben Pauling's yard's been in superb form all season since he moved. So yeah, that's just passing on information. Really.
Did he say anything about Samuel Spade? Because I think he's got him as well. He's got decent form with Perseus Way. So I mean, he would be a benchmark for him.
Yeah, he probably did. I don't know what it was, but
it wasn't as eye-catching as what he said about Bad anyway, which is a note.
That's what he said. He said, I mean, to be fair, Bad was 33-1 at this point, and he said, "Do you want to be back in Bad for the Boodles?" And I said, "Oh yeah, sounds like a good idea." And he said, yeah, he thought he'd made a mistake. He was expecting £10 more, and he said he would be competitive in the Triumph Hurdle, in his opinion.
And interesting enough, Luca Morgan's already jocked up on.
I think Rachel Blackmore rides it. Is that right?
Yeah, it came out today. Yeah,
on Samuel Spade.
Okay. Sorry.
But, yeah, feel free to interrupt me. That's fine.
No problem.
You jump in, mate.
I wish someone had interrupted you when you were giving out non-runners that weren't. But just to save your face, Tommy.
Who else have we got then? Have we done? Oh no, Dan. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, the one Matt gave a favourable mention to when he was reading out his stat in Risk Bell. I actually really like her for this. I know it's a competitive race, but I think she's got a lot more to come. And I think she'd be definitely better than Mark 127 in time. Obviously won a couple of times over in France, has been thrown in the deep end in her starts over in Ireland, travelled notably well on her Irish debut behind Lossiemouth. Just weakened late on that day, looked like she'd come on for it. And then given a very, very patient ride in the Ninth Frank, again behind Lossiemouth, right out the back. Could be caught staying on a long way from home that day, never really put in the race. And then notably gambled upon in the always competitive Mayor's Handicap at the Dublin Racing Festival, went off 5-2 for that race. And for a 4-year-old to go off 5-2 for that, considering it's normally a very deep event, I think speaks volumes of the fact they think she's well ahead of her mark. She did fall mid-race, which isn't ideal, but Mrs. Milner also took a pretty heavy fall during that race and then went on to win the Pertemps a few years ago. So there is precedent for coming back from that. If she is over that, I think she's still on a very generous mark of 127. The British Handicap has only put her up £4. There's a lot to like about her profile. And with Willie Mullins having such a strong hand in the juvenile division, I know he hasn't won the Boodles yet, but it seems only a matter of time. And I think he knows exactly where they are with these juveniles. And I think she's well handicapped.
The Boodles and the Champion Chase must be the only two races he hasn't won. There you are.
There are a lot of handicap chases. They're not his bag either. But
in the Ultima, would he? Yeah, fair enough. All right. Have we got one more today? Yes, we do. Of course, we've got the National Hunt Chase. So there's a couple of us very much in Churchtown Warrior. Sorry, in Guy de Menil's camp, and then there's a lay going up with that horse as well, which frankly I cannot see. Dan Overall, you now just talk some sense into Micheál Deasy. Look him in the eye and make the man see sense.
Yeah, I'm surprised. Look, I backed Marlon Mission a while ago before he lost to Churchtown Warriors. So, like, if anyone's got a reason to think Guy de Menil is beatable, it would be me. But I just don't see what there is to not like about him. I think staying average front, and if I cut out there.
Yeah, you did briefly. Are you back? This gives me a chance, actually, while we try and sort you out, to remind everyone that Energumen won the Champion Chase last year. I'm having an absolute shocker today, so that's fine. Go on, Dan, come back in.
Yeah, I'm back, yeah. It's not your day, is it, Tom?
No, I tell you what, give up. Go on.
No, I just think he's got a clear class edge in this race. I don't think anything else in this would be capable of even winning a poor Grade 1 novice chase over 3 miles. He's got stamina that we know from his performance in the Irish National, experience in abundance. So even if this is a traditional National Hunt chase and the fact that it's a strongly run one, I don't think that'll inconvenience him. If it's slowly run, he's proven he's got enough speed to be able to cope with those tests, especially more than the likes of Marlon Mission or a Churchtown Warrior. I just think he's head and shoulders above these in terms of what he's achieved and what he's capable of. And yeah, I struggled to really see anything to take him on with.
Yeah, so this is the thing, Matt. So I remember, you and I doing previews 6, 7, 8 years ago, where it was always, even when this was 4 miles, you've got to have experience. But I mean, this horse ticks that box, right? So I'm surprised you haven't gone with him. I thought he'd be a classic Tomb selection, to be honest.
I think he would have been when you were getting 15 to 20 runners in this. You had a few genuine amateur riders. They were going a decent gallop and jumping amongst horses. Being battle hardened was really important. We had half a dozen last year, and they hacked round. 5 of them were in a heat, 4 out. So on that basis, I think we'll get a few more this year, maybe 8, 9, 10, something like that. But perhaps the experience isn't so important now.
Right. So, okay, fine. So give us the stat out and out, and then tell me why you like Churchstone Warrior.
So the stat was that horses that are running 8 or more chases are 6 from 36, 58% profit level weights. And in theory, that points straight to Gaillard de Menil, but I wanted to point out how the race is potentially changing, because when you're looking at stats, that's always important. Churchstone Warrior was 7.5 lengths behind him in that Grade 1 at Leopardstown at Christmas, but Churchstone Warrior had only run in a couple of beginners' chases. Gaillard de Menil was having his 7th chase, his 4th Grade 1, big experience advantage. Churchstone Warrior went down the inner and the worst of the ground, since beaten Marlow Mission in the 10 up. He's not really got into a rhythm in either of those races. He does jump a little bit to his right, which is not ideal, but the softer fences at Cheltenham should help. And if he gets into a rhythm going a steadier pace over these easier fences, I think he's the one with the improvement in him. And also in price terms, on the sports books, he's about 8.0 top price. I think he's about 13.5 on the exchange. So you're getting a big bunch of extra price here. So yeah, if you fancy him, definitely back him on the exchange.
If you're going to back him on the exchange, Deasy.
Yeah. So first of all, too short. 2.2, way too short. This is a marathon race. They have to jump loads of fences. It's very hard to win with. He's only won one chase in 8 attempts. Fair enough, he's the class edge, but he's too short in this. Definitely have to take him on. This is a pure slog of a race, especially if it's going to be heavy ground. Like I wouldn't be backing him at all at that price. And if he's a cheap lay, I think so. I'll definitely be taking him on, but at 2.2 or evens if Willie has a few winners in the first day, he'd be going off at 1.8 or 1.9. Yeah, lay all day. Good man, Liam.
I'm not even reading that out, Liam. You're a disgrace. That's just appalling.
Yeah, he's like, look at his insurance form is 3-3-2-1-3. Like he's very hard to win with. No.
Yeah, in Grade 1s and Irish Nationals.
Yeah,
8's winning.
Steve.
I'm liking Liam because he's got a similar haircut to me and Dees. I think the favourite is too short. I mean, you can see him running his race, can't he? Because he stays and he's got experience and he's got some good form. But I thought Tenzing was going to improve an awful lot going up 3/4 of a mile in distance, and his run behind a couple of these Ramillies, he wasn't beaten far by at Thurles, and then he was beaten last time by Marlow Mission at Navan over 3 miles. When he lined up prominent and he just couldn't hold his place and stayed the distance really well, and I think he's going to improve a huge amount. He's got Black Lion, the real stayer of the RSA winner from a few years ago, of Nigel Twiston Davis. He had stacks of stamina, so the pedigree says he should stay. He likes soft ground, and I think he is going to improve an awful lot. So if he turns up, because he's probably the third biggest price of Willie Mullins' 3, I think he'd be the way to go at winning place. I think he's 26.0, something like that. So I'd take a chance with him.
All right, that's Tuesday done and dusted. We'll have a best bet section at the end of the show. We move on to Wednesday, the Coral Cup, and because he's so full of enthusiasm, I'm going to come straight back to Steve just to make it more infectious.
So I didn't expect to come back so soon because I muted myself. Coral Cup, I like HMS Seahorse, who ran at the festival last year and was 4th in what turned out to be a very hot race for the Boodles juvenile novice hurdle. Now he went on from there and won on the flat. He also was placed behind Vauban, albeit a long way behind at Punchestown. And last time, I thought he improved quite a lot going up in distance, 2.5 miles at Navan, and I think that's been the making of him. He's got a really good pedigree, but he clearly stays very well. If you go back to that Boodles, I know he's gone up in the handicap behind Brazil and Gaelic Warrior. Brazil and Gaelic Warrior, both graded winners of some order, like Gaelic Warriors, obviously one of the best novices going into this Cheltenham Festival. So if he's in that sort of form and he has improved HMS Seahorse, then I think he's got a good chance in what is always a crazily open race.
Yeah, HMS Seahorse for you, Dan, overall.
Yeah, this is a nightmare of a race. I think 4 of the past 5 winners have been 20-1 plus or 21.0 plus come the day. So very tough at this stage. But the one I like the most at the current stage is San Salvador, who we haven't seen since New Year's Eve, but he bolted up at Punchestown when we last saw him under what I'd describe as a very un-Irish ride, because JJ Slevin kicked on him a long way from home. Like he took up the running about half a mile out, kicked clear, and had the others all at it. And it was only Captain Combi who has got some solid form over 3 miles and is normally a very consistent type. He is the only one who could really go with them. The rest were 10 lengths back, and it was actually a decent race for the grade as well. And for many people, I think, said that he stole that race, but the time of the race was actually half a second quicker than St. Sam was earlier on the card, and St. Sam's a mid-150 horse. So I don't necessarily buy that. He's effectively gone up 14 pounds now to a mark of 138 when you take into consideration the British handicapper, but that was just his 6-start over hurdles. And you go back to last season, he showed a lot of promise, and Connections always kind of described him as being quite weak. His jumping wasn't great, but he seemed to really put it all together at Punchestown. I think he's clearly still on an upward curve. A mark of 138, I don't think is beyond him. He's a 7-year-old that's lightly raced. I think he ticks a lot of boxes. And just one at a massive price that, if the ground is soft, will become a lot of interest is a horse called An Epic Song for Martin Brazel and the Morayans, who had fast or slow finish second in this race last year at a big price. He won the same Punchestown race, actually, at San Salvador a year earlier on heavy ground. That's basically his only start over an intermediate trip. Since then, he's been back over 2 miles on quick ground, including in the Liffey, pretty much taking the exact same route as fast or slow. If he gets soft ground and steps back up to this 2.5 mile trip, I think he'll be a massive price, and I actually think he'll outrun his odds.
DC?
The one I went for is Beacon Edge. I put this up last week. He was a bigger price, but he's after being trimmed in a small, but now since he's been confirmed for this. He placed in I think it was a stairs hurdle there 2 years ago. They sent him chasing last season. Bit of alright form, but nothing to set the world alight. They ran him at Dunroyal at the start of the season behind Invial, and he hated it. They put him back over hurdles now since January. He finished third in the Boyne hurdle there behind Blazing Cal a few weeks ago. This is his only entry. Again, he's a bit of course form. He'd handle any ground. Probably won't want it too good, but I mean, if as long as it's kind of soft, he should be fine. He's a nice win place bet in a really tough handicap.
All right, I'm just going to stick up a couple. Does anybody know what historic records his preference is? Not that you're going to. She's in this and she's in the pipe. Anybody have any idea? Because I want to back her for, I mean, whichever one she lines up in. I just think she's quite a big price for both of them, and I think she'd have won last time without the hampering on the inner. She also got hampered early on in the race. She won on debut for the yard at Tremor. That was on good grounds. That's a slight concern. But she's the sort of worst handicapped of all the Irish, as in she's got the biggest rise. And that was in all the papers. It was a big headline. But whether she got 11 or 9, I don't think it's, which she did, got 11. I think it makes a big difference. I think we have no idea how good she is, and I think she could be a lot better than 131. O'Fleuron is, I thought of it, of particular interest, just a big price, having come out of that race we mentioned last time, the first and the second lineup here. Fences didn't work out. He was only 10 lengths behind Banbridge last year, lines up off £2 lower. He's about 26.0. I want to take a big price. I thought O'Fleuron was a really big price, and was campaigned quite nicely, I thought, to now be lining up at the festival £2 lower, having run a pretty good race last year. Maybe he wants 3 miles, but I'll chance him here. And then, Matt, you can give us your stat, and then I absolutely love your selection, just trolling our producers. Filth.
The stat is that 6 Cesarovic winners have run that season at the festival this century. Detroit City got closest to the winner, and he was beaten 19 lengths in 6th as a 2.5 favourite for the champion hurdle. It's a negative for the Coral Cup favourite Run for Oscar. And the reason for highlighting this trend is to flag the wider point about peaking horses for the festival. Races like the Coral Cup, so competitive, horses need to be at pitch point for this. And to peak a horse to win a race like the Cesarovic in early October after a flat campaign, Run for Oscar ran in May, June and August, and then win at the festival is really hard for a trainer. Charles Burns is an excellent target trainer, but I'm keen to oppose Run for Oscar. And Langerdan, apparently this has always been the plan to come here. He unfinished business, I think, in Dan Skelton's mind. 2 years ago, he was beaten just over 2 lengths by Galopin de Champs, 9 lengths clear of the third. Then he'd only had 6 days to recover from the Imperial Cup. I think the rider was possibly a bit overconfident as well, so I'll mark that up. And last year, he was coming in off 137, got taken out early and then won at Aintree. And this season, Dan has been touting him up as a stayers hurdle horse, which immediately got my ears twitching in terms of a handicap plot. 3 inauspicious runs. He's down from 145 to 141. I think he's a really well handicapped horse, and we know he runs well at the festival.
Dan Hussey would love it if he won.
Love it.
He would be in clover. Has everyone had a go there? I've lost count. Yeah, good. Let's move on to the cross country. Excuse me. Now, a couple of you mentioned the ground here. I've heard it pitched as if it's soft ground, then Delta Work wins. If it's good ground, then Galvin wins. We've got a bit of a split here. Right, Matt, I agree with you, and that Delta Work will win it again. What's making you lean that way?
Well, it is the ground. So just the background here is there's no drainage on the cross-country course as there are on the conventional tracks. So there isn't the drainage sucking lots of the moisture out. But for the first time, they moved the watering apparatus onto the cross-country course the other day and put 30 mils down on that as well. So unlike the conventional tracks where the drainage is sucking a lot of that out, that's going to sit there. You've got all this rain and snow coming as well. So for whatever John Pullard says at the moment about the ground, I'm expecting it to be quite testing on the cross-country course. And that is a big advantage for Delta Work, and even more so a negative for Galvin.
And that stat, it's going to be between them. It's not. You don't get a big prize in this.
No, that's right. 14 of the 18 winners, including 6 of the 7 at level weights, come from the front 3 in the market, and that was when the race was more competitive. Gordon is now bringing Grade 1 horses into this, and if they take to the task, they're just outclassing the opposition.
Who's the Galvin person? Steve Jones.
Yeah, he'll win, Galvin. He's a class horse. This time last year, he was second favourite for the Gold Cup. That's sort of level he operates at. I'd be surprised though. That takes me a bit by surprise what Matt says, that he thinks the ground's going to go testing, because obviously it never gets watered, and even if it has recently, it's probably gone straight through it. And I'd be surprised if it was testing, but I don't think he's that bothered by a bit of soft ground. If it was heavy, he might be, but he finished second to Frodon around Down Royal on soft ground, and I think he's just a class horse. And although Delta Work has got the experience around there and is equally good, I just think he's still in his prime, Galvin. He's won at the festival before, and if he takes to those fences like I think he will, then he's going to take the beating.
It's 2.2 versus 3.25. Delta Work has taken a little walk in the betting. I think that's ever since Jamie Codd smirked on a preview about Galvin. It's all it takes nowadays. Good comment from Liam. Deasy having a private giggle when anyone says Langerdan. That's so true.
I don't even fancy him. I just wanted to put him up.
Yeah, just exactly. All right, Adis, you said not until I know the ground. We don't need to spend any more time on this. No. Good. On we go. Right. The Grand Annual. Okay, I'll come straight back at you then, Dees. You've got a couple here, including last year's winner.
Yeah, this I think this is the toughest one, and one I'd be probably the least confident on my selections, and I could even change the day of. So last year's winner of Global Citizen was a good winner because he just really handled the conditions. This was run on really, really heavy ground. He got out in front and he just kept going. And he arrives here. I think he 10 pounds less than that. He ran off 136. He's in here now at he's like he on base of last year's run. He has. I think he has a good chance. He's a big price. Like if he can get out in front of the rim, as I said, I think it's going to be soft again this year. I just thought he was a big price, and like horses that run winning this last year generally turn or keep it going the following year. So I'd stick with him. And the other one I liked was Dad's Lad. He won at Cheltenham in the October meeting. I think he was one of the first runners that Willie had sent over in 5 years, and he scooted home in that race. And that race has, I think, Bundoran won that a few years ago. Before Midnight won it as well the year before. Like that, these are horses that had very good form over 2 miles over the rest of the season. He ran in the Greywood, but ran like stink. He's been put away since. Again, he's about 15 or 16.0. I could see him if he's right today, and if he's fit, I could see him running a nice race in that. So I'll stick with the two of them.
So Matt, does last year's winner, and I know it's not your selection, does he fit in with your trend?
No, the last horse to win this 2 years in a row was just after the war, I think. And horses who win this don't win handicap chases again. So he's up against it, I would think, on the stats.
What is your trend here?
My trend, this is a wider trend, not specifically about the Grand Annual, but it feeds into it. Last year, 7 British horses ran in handicaps, having been dropped £10 or more from the mark they had, either when last running the previous season or first running in that current season. Context of that was the BHA Quality Jumps Review. 2 parts of that relevant to the festival handicapping. Firstly, they wanted to lower the ratings of the overall British horse population, and also they wanted to drop horses more quickly. So all those 7 horses that ran last time went off 20.6.0 or bigger. Global Citizen won this 29.0. Third win won the Pertemps at 26.0. Didera Vallis was third at 67.0 in the Kimya, and 2 of the others finished 6th. So they were running miles above what you'd expect, complete turnaround from the historic position where horses on the downgrade weren't dropped quickly enough. So the question for this year is how much of that success came from that one-off readjustment and how much from dropping horses quicker. And I've got 2 who want very different ground conditions who've been dropped a lot here. The first one is Rouge Vif, £16 lower than his final run last season, £12 lower than he started this season. Like Global Citizen, he's been running poorly over hurdles during the year. Shaped much better going back over fences, Doncaster last time. Harry Whittington's made no secret that this has been the target. Like the 2 winners last year, former graded conditions race win, having won the Kingmaker, albeit that was 3 years ago. However, he's on 137, and much to my surprise, 40 were left in this in the 6-day confirmation stage today, so he's not certain to get in. The other one is Sizing Potsy, who's £15 lower than the mark he ran off on his final start last season. His graded conditions race win is much more recent, just a year ago in the Grade 2 Webster Cup at Navan. He's also mixed hurdling and chasing this season, runs over fences, but in graded conditions races he couldn't win. So off 140, he should just about squeeze in. And they want completely different underfoot conditions. Rouge Vif wants a sound surface, Sizing Potsy wants a swamp. So they're both horses for the notebook for backing if they get a run under their favoured conditions.
Okay, Dan, overall.
Yeah, so a couple in here. One is a long-term fancy, and that's Andy Dufresne, who obviously returns from last year's narrow defeat when he just couldn't really reel in. Global Citizen, as Deasy said, got away on the front end and got into a room and just could never peg him back. Ever since, really, I think they've had this race in mind for him. And when he ran in the Dan and Joe Memorial Handicap, the big 2-mile handicap over in Ireland, he was just out the back, plodding along in rear, never really competitive. He got dropped back to his old Irish mark after that, and I think it was just part of a long-term plan to get him back here. Like, if you remember last year, he was probably one of the more sustained gambles of the week. Like, he went off 10-3 favourite for last year's Grand Annual, having been high single figures earlier in the day. Well, that was a lot of support that came for him. And returning favourites in the Grand Annual do have a good record. I think 9 have tried on the second attempt and 3 have won, which is a remarkable success rate when you consider the competitive nature of a Grand Annual. I just think this has been the plan for a while. We know Gordon Elliott didn't have a great time last season in Cheltenham in general. So if he can do better here, I still think there's a race in him off a mark of 155, the same as he ran in last year. And then Red Rookie, who, like Matt said, might not actually get in now. I thought he was pretty much a lock to get in off a mark of 137, but might not at the minute. But if he does, I think he's a live player. He was actually quite fancied for this race last year, but Connections decided to go to the Arkle instead, which, to be fair, like, he actually ran pretty well. Like, I had to watch the race back, and he was still giving a bold show when he fell at the last. It wasn't a tired fall. He just took off too soon. And either side, he had Horton Calor, who's obviously a mid-150s horse, and Warlord, who's been rated in about the mid-140s. So he was running a really decent race in an Arkle. And for the time we thought it was a poor Arkle, it's probably worked out to be better than we thought. This season, it just hasn't really got going. And that's mainly because of ground conditions. Like, this is a horse traditionally who's wanted it on the softer side. I mean, he ran over 2.5 miles at the start of the season because they just couldn't find a 2-mile race for him when ground was in his favour. And then he ran in at Sandown about a month ago in a race that just kind of fell apart. But he travelled really well into that race. And I think he just probably hit the front too soon, and third time lucky scooted by and just picked up the pieces. But this is a horse who's threatened to have a big race in him for almost a season now. I think 2 miles is absolutely fine for him. If it is on the softer side, I think that's definitely going to suit. And if he can run like he did in last year's Arkle, 137 is a tempting mark. And I think you can still get 21.0 about him. So if he gets in, I think he's got a good chance.
Just while we're here on getting in and not getting in, Matt, any races which you think we're going to be surprised either way? I know you've got all the historical data on where the line is to get in, but just your overall sort of races that have surprised you a touch. This sounds like it's one of them, but go on.
Yeah, that's the main one. I think the other handicap chases, pretty much everything that wants a run will get them, particularly in the 2 staying chases. And the other handicap hurdles, obviously the Pertemps is slightly different because there are only 4 qualifying. So that'll be a bit different than last year. I think most of them, the handicap hurdles, the mark to get in might be £2 or £3 lower than it has been in recent years.
Okay, on to I agree with Andrew Ukraine for all the reasons that Dan said. The champion bumper then. Steve, you can kick us off because you sat the last one out. This really sums you up, this horse.
Fun. Yeah, fun, baby. Yeah, well, if you back anything that isn't trained by Willie Mullins or Gordon Elliott, I think you're on a loser. You're up against it all the time. It's obvious that Willie Mullins, since this race was introduced, virtually has been the man to follow. Was he won a dozen of them or something? And also that Fun's a mare, and they got a pretty good record in it. Obviously, they get the allowance, and she looked very good to me at last time. Actually, won twice. She won the Grade 2 at Leopardstown over Christmas by off the track, and just think that she's in a race that's impossible to judge a lot of the form. She's got the right man training her, and she should very.
Dan and Deasy agree. Deasy?
Yeah, Western Diego. This isn't a race I'll be getting heavily involved in, but I'll have a little win place betting him. He's owned by Clipper Logistics, who are probably way better known as flat owners, but he's at one run. He ran there at the end of January at Naas in 1 by 6.5 lengths, won fairly easy. He ran over, it was actually 2 miles 3 just before further than this day. Like, if you go back through the previous winners, you Seabank Bistro, latest exhibition, Big Dog, even Cloltevic and Orvini, these are all good bumper horses or horses that went on to better things. He's just an interesting price. He's about 16.0. I'd have a little win place betting him.
Dan, overall, you agree?
Yeah, I just think relative to some of the others in the market, given it's a pretty open renewal, I thought he looked too big. Like, he posted a 130 RPR in that bumper on his rules debut, which it's tough to do. Not many bumper horses produce a figure like that on rules debut. So really impressive, travelled like a dream. And Patrick only briefly asked him for an effort, but once he did, he quickened away really nicely and put the race to bed within a matter of about 100 yards or so. The form's decent. The second, Sutton's Hill, was behind It's For Me previously, and the trainer apparently said he thinks he's actually come on significantly after his run behind It's For Me. So that paints the form in a good light. The third Will Do had been second to Factor File, who again is shorter in the betting. So it has a lot of ties into a lot of the other market leaders. Look, it's hard to be confident in this race because it's just so wide open, but I thought he was overpriced and he's still a horse with a lot of potential.
I'm with Chosen Witness, who ran an absolute stinker last time. The race won by A Dream to Share, but that was quicker ground than it's going to be here on the Limerick form, and he has got a good bit of knee on testing ground. I thought he looked really good. Look, big prices and Yard third and fourth have won this before. I think it's interesting that Willie is keeping the horse seemingly in the race, and given that he was disappointing last time, and there was a weight of money that came for him last time. So if it is soft or worse, I'll have a little bit on Chosen Witness at the prices. Matt, what's your stat and your horse?
Stat is that the top two in the BHA ratings are 8 from 33 since they began in 2008, 55% profit backing those. And many punters look at the bumper. I think form and ratings don't play a part. It's about vibes and is it the right type to take the challenge of the day? So it's worth, when they get published, typically when the declarations come through, looking at those, because this looks wide open. Rewatching the races, the one that caught my eye was Encanto Bruno. Bolted up in the bumper, moon race of 1 at Cheltenham's October meeting, so we know he acts at the track. Form has worked out really well. Strong leaders 3 out 3 over hurdles, lively outside of the Supreme. Company Sergeant ran well at Nace the other day. Mamoon Star beat a subsequent winner on his hurdles debut. General Slopes won the listed bumper at Cheltenham's November meeting. So the form looks to have some substance. They went very steadily. Canto Bruno showed loads of speed to shoot clear. And despite the sedate pace, he settled well, looking a professional type. And that's really important, the champion bumper, because the occasion gets to so many of them. On breeding, his half-brother Winter Wells at his best over an extended 3 miles with some cut in the ground. So a stiffer test may well bring out more improvement. Looking at open year, you're going to get a full field, I think. And given the uncertainty over which horses will take the occasion, very much a win-only race for me. I wouldn't be playing in the place market. But the vibes have been strong for Encanto Bruno, so I think he's worth a play in an open race.
Moving on to Thursday, the Pertemps, Steve Jones. I can't believe you've dug this one out as well, because I thought I was being clever here. I tell you what, this horse was ridden for his life to get fourth and qualify last time. I thought he did well to finish where he did, given the pace they went early on. The winners came from off it. And on back form, Bear Gills is a well-treated horse. So I quite like fair chases in it as well. Go on.
Yeah, I thought I was being clever, but clearly I'm being thick as shit because I've come down the same one as you. But yeah, I mean, this horse was a really good novice a couple of years ago. Went to Cheltenham and ran behind Bob Ollinger. What's that called these days? The Ballymore. So Bob Ollinger, Galliard Deminale, Braveman's Game, and then Bear Gills. Came back after a break this time. Hadn't run for 18 months and went over fences. Didn't really like it. Last time, returned to hurdles, went from the front. Well, he didn't usually go from the front over hurdles or fences before last time. And I just thought he went a little bit too fast. Thanks for Help was a very easy winner, but it's sort of set up for him. And I thought that was a good run, return to hurdles. He'll love it if it keeps raining. He'll definitely stay, and he'll be one of those that it's kicking on. And everyone gets excited in the Pertemps about horses that have won qualifying races impressively, but they haven't got a good record to my mind. And Bear Gills has got that nice kind of handicap mark that it's very workable. So Bear Gills, yeah, Nicky Martin won the Welsh National, and hopefully she'll win a big handicap at the Cheltenham Festival.
DC.
Yeah, with Ian Bear Gills, especially if the ground comes up soft or heavy. But I know John said that he didn't like the ones who won the qualifier, but I thought Thanks for the Help was wildly impressive. He came across to Punchestown there last April, ran in the handicap hurdle over 2.5 miles, and was a huge punt on him, and he finished third. Just didn't quite get there. Very disappointing. And he's had a bit of wind surgery since. Now, the reason I liked that win the last time is that he there was no attempt to preserve any kind of handicap mark or something. They just went for it. He absolutely skated home. He won by 6.5 lengths. Probably could have been more. he's no real price for this now, but like you have to be respecting the JP horses in this as well. Can't wait to see who's jocked up on him. I think he'll run an absolutely massive race, and you know he's not a big price. I also like Percival, Legalois. They're both around the same price, but I just thought Thanks for the Help was so good last night. The wind surgery obviously really worked, and I think he's a massive chance in this.
I suppose the thing is he had to shit up to get in.
Yeah.
So that was it. And overall?
Yeah, speaking of a horse who absolutely danced up in his qualifiers, Shoot First, I thought was wildly impressive in October. We haven't seen him since, but the way he won that day I was there, he won that so convincingly. Like, the margin of victory does that no justice whatsoever. Like, he tanked to the front about half a mile out, which you don't want to do. And he just did pretty much nothing out in front. And then once actually asked, he started hanging out to his left. He had so much left in hand, it was almost ludicrous. And it was, again, a classic Charles Byrne gamble landed, and obviously put away with this race in mind ever since. I think for a qualifier, that was pretty decent form. You had Botox Haz, who went on to win the big 3 mile handicap at Haydock. And Tayol has been put up by a few people for this. I think he was third, and Salvador Ziggy, I think, likewise, has been pretty popular, and he was in fourth, and he's about a 10.0 chance for this. So as qualifiers go, I think that was a high standard. Do you believe what they're saying? Apparently on the preview circuit, they think this might be a stayers hurdle horse for next season. That might be a stretch, but I think he's still got another handicap in him off about 139. Again, I was just so wildly impressive in October. I think he'll take some beating here.
All right, and Matt Toombs, we've got to back the Irish, right?
Yeah. Just on the qualifiers, horses who won qualifiers in this are 2 from 101 this century. You'd have lost 3/4 of your betting bank back in the blind. The other stat I wanted to talk about was the only one that we actually used last year as well. The 10 runners from Culuntra House between 2016 and 2021 finished 2-1, 2-1, 5-1, 2-3, 5-4. Punters have short memories. They bombed out last year. A lot of Gordons didn't run that well, but he is a serious operator at laying them out for these. But my choice, though I fear Maxim because I think he got a ride to make sure the BHA handicapper didn't put him up too much last time. I think the best value at the moment is Good Time Johnny. Always been highly regarded by Tony Martin. 24 lengths ninth in Fernie Hollow's champion bumper. Given a typical Tony Martin education over the summer and autumn over hurdles. 3 handicap wins, including the big 3 mile handicap hurdle at the Dublin Racing Festival off 129. Well backed into 12-1, joint favourite, 4th favourite for the Albert Bartlett last year. It was his 9th run of the season, so maybe it was a run too far. A lot of horses don't take to that test. But this season, he's had all the hallmarks of the classic Tony Martin plot. Twice over fences, twice on the flat. Showed up in the Leopardstown qualifier at Christmas, which has been the best guide to this. Had a claimer on board, kept him wide throughout, looking behind him, not in front of him. Now, Good Time Johnny's been given 142, so he's £21 better off with Maxim for those 16.5 lengths. He's £10 better off for Percival BeGambleAware, despite finishing 9 lengths in front of him. He looks dangerously well handicapped, and if this is a Tony Miles Xenophon style plot, there'll be an avalanche of money for Good Time Johnny before the off. So if you buy my theory, we want to be backing him now.
All right, that's the Pertemps done. On to the plate. I love this. I'm just going to read out the Venetia stat if I can, Matt, because I love it. That Venetia Williams is 3 from 26 this century with a 72.277% profit. I love that, and I love the fact that she's got Frero Bamboo in there, who I know you agree with. I thought he's well handicapped enough to take this. I thought, and I actually think this trip might just bring out the best in him.
Absolutely, I think he needs it. You know, he was never going the gallop in the Grand Annual last year, nor in the Red Run. Venetia said at the start of the season, "Oh, I need to step him up in trip." But lo and behold, 4 runs around the minimum trip, he's down £7. And I think he's got a great chance here.
Okay, that's Frero Bamboo. The other 2 I'm going to have on my radar if declared. I won't back him now, Fast or Slow, although he's been backed in the Ultima. I think he's the one Irish chaser I really want to back. The other one is Fusil Raffles, who I assume has still got 4 legs. He's always been considered best fresh. I worry a bit about the ground because it's said that he wants good ground, but fresh and still a fairly treated horse. I thought Fusil Raffles Deasy was very interesting.
Yeah, he is very good course form as well. This is something I'd always look at in this race. he's been around Cheltenham a few times. He's won here. No, he is off a break. That's probably a bit of a negative, but I just think for the price he's going to be 21.0 or something. He's well worth win place bet. And like I said, no, very interesting at the ground. I probably will be stronger on something probably on the day once I know how the track is riding. But for this far out, I'm happy enough to put up a few raffles win place.
Yeah, he's on my shortlist as well, to be fair, Fizzle Raffles. He was at the Kenton Gallops Day as well, I think. So he is fit and well. And I think if you go back last year, it was about single figure price, despite being about £7 higher for this race. So a lot to like.
Yeah. He was there was a lot of talk about him last year. Steve?
Not a race I had a huge opinion on, but Stolen Silver is just a crazy price on the back of running terribly last time, but he was sick after that at Warwick. And if you go back to that second in Midnight River, then he's going to have an excellent chance. And he loves Cheltenham. His form at Cheltenham is exceptional. He was second there to De Geet, beating a neck early last season when trying to give that one weight. Then he was also placed in this race last year behind Cool Cody. And he seems to have improved this season. And if he's back to form like Tom Thomas's horses seem to be, because a lot of them were struggling when he ran about a month or so ago, he'd be a crazy price. It's something like 34.0, is he? Something like that. Or even more than that, maybe.
Ooh, I don't have it up in front of me, but I think he's a fair old price, Stolen Silver. Just I know that Fuser Raffles didn't run in the race last year. I think he was taken out the day before or the morning of, having been declared after Shishkin had run such a bad race and Nicky took a few out. There you are. Okay, let's move on to the Mayor's Novice. Dan, I'll come straight to you because you set the last one out.
Yeah, it's a tough old race, this, but I think with Lucia and Ashro Diamond taking up so much of the market and considering it normally attracts a decent field sizes, I just wanted somewhat an each way price and a lot of joy. I think there's a lot going for her here. Like, she's experienced from her time on the flat, and I think she's been improving steadily over hurdles. And when I look at these mares races, I really do like form in behind the geldings, and some of her form reads really well. She was second to Deep Cave, who finished close up in the Nathaniel Lacey. He had firm footings back in third that day, and I think he's quietly fancy for the Martin Pipe. So that reads pretty well. That was over 2 mile 4, and she travelled like the winner all day there. Just probably didn't see out 2 mile 4 on that occasion. She was second to, I know the way you're thinking behind that. Like, I think a lot of people thought he was a Martin Pipe plot job, but he's achieved a lot, that horse. So to finish close up to him is a good effort. She's obviously got off the mark next time out in what was a nothing race. That would done her confidence some good, though. She was third in an Irish Cesaro, which I think a big field will much play to her strengths better than these small novice races have done, where she's been trying to go from the front. I think she wants to sit in off a strong pace. She's a very smooth traveller. We know she's got speed from her time on the flat, and her experience, I think, will pay dividends here. I think ridden patiently, I think she'll be in the shake-up.
Yeah, and of course it's really opened up now that Lucia's out.
Of course, yeah, absolutely.
If you're listening on the podcast, by the way, that isn't the case. Steve.
Sorry, I double-clicked then. Another one where I just want to go for one at a bit of a bigger price because Lucia's been super impressive and she might well hose up. But Magical Zoe is a horse that I think is interesting, given that she won a red-hot race at Down Royal, albeit it was way back in November and she hasn't run since. But if she's in that sort of form, and she won't mind it if it's soft ground, if she's in that sort of form, I think she's overpriced at, what would she be?
11.
Something like, yeah. So you win and place on her, but I think Lucia will probably win. But Magical Zoe would be one that I would expect to run very well.
So to you, Matt, is that to do with your stat or not?
Partially, because the stat is about Willie Mullins. He won the first 5 renewals. The last 2 renewals, he's had 10 runners, and only one of them has done better than 5th. So half of those went off 9.0 or shorter. Hunters tend to just look to what's the one from the Mullins camp. And actually, the value is probably now going to be with other trainers, because with the Wider Mares programme, so many more trainers are involved in that. And I like Magical Zoe for exactly the reasons Steve said. I think she's got a decent chance. The other one I want to back is Gordon Elliott's Hauka de Tarbet. She beat Eva Grace by 11 lengths at Nace. Looked like a relentless galloper. The fast run test of stamina at the trip at the Dawn Run looks ideal. She then went to the Solarina over an extended 2-2 at Fairyhouse, won by Ashrow Diamond. As a Class 1 race, winning that gives you the full £5 penalty here. David Russell made a great ride there in terms of getting her some more experience without incurring a penalty. Dictated a slow pace that didn't suit her, wasn't overly vigorous, didn't use his whip at the business end, and she went down by 2.5 lengths to Ashrow Diamond to be £5 better off now with the Dawn Run. So I think she's got every chance of turning that form round. And as Dan was saying, there's almost always a big field for this. 3 of the last 4 years, full field of 22. So it's not a race I really want to play in the place markets. I'd rather split my stakes win only, and I'm going with Magical Zoe and Hauka de Tarbet.
All right, and Deasy's with, I just can't have Princess Zoe, Deasy. Not in a million years.
Why not?
See, over 2-1, she'd need it to be bottomless.
She could be bottomless.
It could be. I can't. No way. No, she won't. She wouldn't. I can't have her.
No, she finished. She finished second in that big bumper at Ascot there a few years ago as well. That wasn't on bottomless ground, I think.
But they'll just go too. She won't be quick enough.
Yeah, look, I know she's a bit of a wild swing, but I tell you exactly why I liked her now and what I thought about her. I know she's only one run over hurdles, but and she's a bit old, but she's a very tough, experienced mare. And that race there that he did with Ladybag, she jumped the last was bad, gave up all the momentum, and when she got headed by the horse, she kept going and just stuck the head out. Like she could have been beaten easy, but she kept going. And got back up for her dead heat. I think that'll be a nice bit of experience for her. And like she's a lot of races done there now. She has some top class fat form. And if the ground is softish, she could definitely I know her price is coming a lot now because Tony Mullins is probably putting all his charity bets on her. But I could see her running better than expected. And the other one is a horse with no name, Nicky Henderson's mare. She finished second in this last year to Love and Va, and she was coming all the way to the line. Love and Va ended up being fairly decent, and I'd say definitely has a good chance in the actual mare's hurdle. She pulled up on Stephen's Day, it just wasn't right. We haven't seen her since, but I think the fact that she ran that last year will stand to her. And again, she's a decent price, but she's about 17.0. I'll have a little win place bet both of them.
Liam says fellow puts up Fusil raffles. Can't have Princess Zoe, the cheek. That's probably fair enough. Can't argue with that.
Come on.
I'd have a chance. You wear it well. Who will probably want testing ground again, just because she's a bit of a stayer at the trip. But her form's very good. The second in the shallow, and I like what she did last time. She looked better with a lead, which I think she'll get here. I just feel like she's been a bit underestimated. I think she's got plenty of class, but it'll probably be win and place on the day. She's about 11.0. Kim Muir, nothing for me or Steve. Dan Overall, straight back at you. Would you like this horse?
Yeah, I've gone for a big one in this because I don't really fancy much at the head of the market. I respect Stumptown, but the prices, I'm happy to leave him alone. So I've gone with Dr. Kananga, who I believe when we previewed the Beecher, a lot of us fancied. He had a nice prep run over hurdles. We thought it would suit him. In the end, I think he was just too exuberant for it. He ballooned a lot of those fences, and in a race where it paid to be patient, he just handled them. And he's himself took 1-3. Starting as a 3-5, he was second to Eva's Oscar, who was running off 1-3-2 that day. He then bolted up off 140 the other day, so that looks decent form. And Ben Clark is getting a reputation for being a bit of a target trainer. Like he's done it with the Galloping Bear. Obviously, he had a spin over hurdles before going again second in the Ida the other day. Obviously, he's had some very good staying chase form. And I just think this has been a bit of a plan for him. Like he came out of the point-to-point sphere as a trainer. I think he'll have someone planned to ride him who's of a decent standard, which is always crucial for a Kim Muir. This is his only entry. He'll go from the front. Whether he's quite got the stamina, if he's going to be as exuberant as he was in the Beecher, that's a question mark. But he's on a good mark. He's clearly been laid out for this, I believe. And I think he'll give a bold bid from the front, and he's a good price.
All right, Matt, who are you looking at and why regards the statistic?
So, yeah, the stat does lead into my selection here. 8 of the last 12 winners came from the front 3 in the market, going off 10.0 or shorter. We've had a couple of shocks like Chambard, but generally this is much more predictable than you might expect for a 24-runner staying handicap chase. And the key to that is the amateur riders. The Irish Yards tend to target this rather than the Ultima, because they've got the massive advantage of the top qualified riders. They tend to get on the best handicapped horses, which is like a squared advantage for them. So there are some really progressive types in this. The one I like is Angel's Dawn. There's a huge advantage of Derek O'Connor riding. 1 off 122 at Down Royal, heavily backed into 2.88 for the Grand National Trial at Punchestown last month. Looks to be going best there, off 128 when unseating 2 out. Gets in here off 131. Has only run right-handed over fences, but he looks to jump straight, so I don't think that's going to be a problem. And when looking at the jockeys, it's not just who will ride, it's also who has been riding during the season. He's had a promising £7 claimer, Keen Quirk, but that's very different from Stumptown, who's had Johnny Burke and Danny Mullins, or Mr. Incredible, who's had Brian Hayes riding. Angel's Dawn will be getting a significant jockey upgrade with Derek getting the leg up, whereas plenty of his rivals will be getting a jockey downgrade. So he looks the one to be with at this stage. If you are going to back him on anti-post terms on the Matchbook exchange, just wait until tomorrow to check he isn't declared for the Leinster National. As I understand it, Kim Muir's the plan. But if you need to back him now, then you should take the non-runner and no bet concession just in case.
Micheál Deasy.
Yeah, I could see Helen is after tipping one of them there now for me. The first one I like is A Night in Lambourne. Ben Pauling's horse. He ran at the October meeting, finished second to Jimmy the Digger, and then he came out and he won very well at the November meeting. No, that was obviously bought on the old course, but he's put away for this. I think he's on a nice mark for it, and as we said earlier, Ben Pauling is having a fantastic season. I'd say like this is his only entry. This is obviously his target, and then just out of the few of the bigger priced ones, I thought he was he had a nice look to him, and something close to the top of the market as well that caught my eye was Henry Daly's horse Rapper. He could have sneaked in the bottom of the Ultima, but this is the only entry he got for the week. He's just in the Kimura. No, he's carrying 11-11, but there'll be a lot of them. He's number 9 in the list. There'll be a lot of them in and around that mark. He has good course form. He will handle the ground, whether it is unless it's in the extremes. Henry Daly is having a great season. He won the race he won in January. Was like the past winners of that included horse like Beware the Bear, who went on to win the Ultima the same year. So I just think he's a nice profile for it, and I think he's in there about what price did I see him at there now? He's currently in there at about 34.0, so he's a massive price. If he runs in this, I think he could definitely be in the top 3 or 4.
Moving on to the county, as Helen says, "Oh yes, DC, oh yes," which is a great read.
Clip that.
Yeah. The county then. Matt, I'll come straight to you here because I quite like Pembroke, who's a handicap debutant. Now, I know this isn't your trend, but there used to be a thing about handicap debutants having a shocking record. Has that changed?
Yeah, and it's changed with Samurai and then State Man coming in. But bear in mind, they were thrice raced novices that Willie Mullins was aiming originally at the Supreme and then ended up in this. So I think with the 4 runs rule now, and the fact that Willie won't change his method in order to get that 4th run, that trend might start reasserting itself.
Okay, well, you're looking at Irish form here.
I am. This is a trial for this race. You don't get many trials that are particularly associated with festival handicaps. What's now the Liffey handicap at the Dublin Racing Festival? Runners from out of 4th and 43 in the last 15 renewals, more than doubled your money. And for a few years, the disparity between the Irish and British systems meant they didn't get in, but they should do this year. 8 of the other 13 renewals, other than those 2 won by State Man and Samurai, who will be eligible this year, have been won by horses going off 21.0 or bigger. So I'm not afraid of backing one at a price in the county. And the first one I'm interested in is a quite big price. Ballyadam, the former Royal Bomb winner, didn't take to chasing, looked a horse with an issue when first reverting hurdles, but got his act together in this race last year, 6 lengths fifth, off 144, 51.0, long way back there. He was ridden more prominently on his first run back from a break in the Liffey when beaten just over 4 lengths in third off 142. That should have put him spot on. I think a fast run race does want goodish ground, suit him ideally. He's £4 higher than last year on 148, but he arrives in much better form. So if he gets his ground, he looks a big price. The other one is more obvious in Gin Coco. Case for him is fairly simple. 5.5 lengths second, do I like to move it in the Greatwood off 131. They were 13 lengths clear of the third. 4th, 7th and the 8th have all won handicaps since, so that form looks good. I like to move it. Didn't stay in the rail kill, but he bolted up in impressive fashion in the Kingwell. He's now £15 higher than he was in the Greatwood. So if you believe that Wincanton form, he's got place prospects in the Champion Hurdle. And Gin Coco's been kept off since the Greatwood, similar to Superb Stories, just £4 higher, hasn't gone up on collateral form. So he's one of the most obvious well-handicapped horses of the week. So it's Ballyadam and Gin Coco, my two against the field here.
Okay, mine were Pembroke, and the other one is Path Doru, who another handicap debutant who I don't think is getting the credit for he deserves for the win last time, where the favourite was brought down by another horse and another well-supported horse went wrong. I think he'd have won anyway, so I think he's fairly beaten, and I'm not surprised he's not the novice route. Steve?
I'm going to go for one of Gordon Elliott's 3,000 entries. So Phil Dorr, if he is going to turn up, who knows? But he was a very good juvenile last year. He finished second of Vauban in 3 Grade 1s, Leopardstown, Cheltenham in the Triumph, and then at Punchestown. And he had to go over fences, but didn't really. He won first time and then didn't really go on from there, but beat Sharjah last time. And that's as good as it gets. But again, it's another really open race. But it's interesting that the last 9 have been won either by an Irish horse or a Dan Skelton. So if you're going apart from them, you've flown against the tide again.
Dan Overall.
Yeah, and that kind of leads me on to Sharjah. Like, obviously, conditions are changing now, obviously, with 4 runs being needed to get into this. So your St. Raj, your Statemans won't get in. And I think Hunter Jean probably would have been in that similar mould, but having to have that 4th run, I think he's shown his hand a bit. So I think Willie Mullins' best chance in this is going to be Sharjah. Now, history is against him. Like, there hasn't been a 9-year-old plus winner since 2007, and he's a 10-year-old. But I think he retains a lot of his ability still, and there's been excuses for him this season. Like, he made a couple of bad mistakes especially the last time out when he ran, and that ground as well. I think I listened to Patrick Mullins afterwards. He said he basically knew Sharjah couldn't really win that race as soon as he saw the time of the first race. It was on the heavy side of soft. That's not what Sharjah wants. He wants good spring ground. This horse has been second in 2 champion hurdles, and I think off 155, which he's dropped to now, the British handicapper left him alone. He's got a cracking chance. And these kind of classy types that come on from graded races down to this have a good record. Like Arctic Fire won the county hurdle off 158 a few years ago. We had Petit Mouchoir, who was in the Red Mills as well. We finished 3rd, I think, well beaten, the same race Sharjah's coming from. He was off 155. He finished 2nd in it at a big price. I think Sharjah's a better horse and still retains more ability than Petit Mouchoir did at that stage. I think given a patient ride on the new course, I think that'll be perfect for him. That's exactly how he likes to be ridden. I think this race will suit him down to the ground. I think he's got a massive chance.
Who hasn't gone? Deasy?
Yeah. I've Tunis. I'm putting up Auchenrisk, the winner of the Betfair Hurdle there a few weeks ago. He was short in the market there for the Grand Annual. I couldn't understand why they would send him to that instead of this. He's had a nice rise for that, but they were so far clear of the third. I just thought he still has a bit in hand. Should handle the ground. Has been around Cheltenham bumpers, handled it fine. I just think he's a 17.0, 16.0. I'll have a little win place betting him. Chris Gordon again is flying it this season. And the other one of the Mullins horses, I don't know if he's going to run because he's entered in Supreme, but I think if Hunter's Yarn turned up in this, he'd have an unbelievable chance. Absolutely hammered. Imagine there the last day at Navan, tore up the hill, beaten by 6 lengths. Just I hope he goes for this instead of the Supreme because he has no hope in the Supreme. But I think if he is declared on this, he'll end up, I'd say, possibly favourite. So if you fancy him for it, take the price now.
Any angle, anyone on where he's going to run?
It's on the exchange, he's pretty weak for the Supreme.
Yeah. Say that again, Matt.
The vibe on the circuit's been what the county's the plan, but not certain.
Good. Yeah, take the price now if you want it. Moving on to the Mayor's Chase then. There's no trend here because it's a very new race. Only Matt and Steve with betting opinions. Steve Jones.
I thought the favourite was pretty iffy, to be honest. Because he jumps right, or she rather, it's a clue in the name, isn't it? So I'm going for Impervious, who I think is a very good jumper, and she has won all 3 starts over fences and looks very good to me. So she looks bomb-proof and should run a race, and that might well be good enough.
Matt?
Yeah, I definitely agree with Steve about the favourite. That I want to take on. Respected Impervious. I do think, though, that Jeremy's Flame sets a decent standard, much more experience. She absolutely thumped Zambella, who looked a better mare this year. It's a decent yardstick. And she does, as a bonus, get £3 from the 2 market leaders. She's a much bigger price at around 7.0. So I've gone with her.
All right. And the Martin Pipe, easy enough to solve this one. Matt, you can come straight back in with your statistic, which I think is an easy one. Then go on to your other selection, just a step back.
The stats. So the theory here is that the conditionals, many of them, this is their only ride at the meeting, lots of adrenaline, tend to go very quickly. It becomes a real test of stamina at the trip. And form further than this extended 2.5 has been a good guide. The trend is about horses that have won over the furthest trip they've tried, suggesting they're a strong stayer, but providing that is over at least 2 miles 5. So horses that have won over the furthest they've run over hurdles, minimum 2.5, are 6 from 52, 74% profit. You need a real stayer for this race.
All right. I've already put out this story on Constable. We never really run it because I just think she could be very well treated and it's been overplayed, the amount she's been put up. So she'll do for me if she lands at here. She might go in a county. Deasy.
I'm going to have a wild swing at Blue Sari in this. He was entered in the Carl Cup and a few other ones, but this seems to be his target if he gets to the festival. Look, he's a high class horse. I think he's been dropping down the handicap over the last years, but he's run all right at Cheltenham before. He finished second in the bumper to Valen. He's 25.0 off. Didn't do a whole pile of research in this race, but he caught my eye, so I'm going to stick with him.
Okay. Dan, I like this horse as well, but he's going to go for the Albert Bartlett, isn't he?
I mean, it looks likely. I think if he ran here, he'll win. Like, they've surely got to be looking at 142 and thinking this race could be perfect for him. Like, he is the best horse in this race by some distance on what he's achieved. He's been crying out for this kind of test. Obviously, I just know they want Adrian Heskin on, which fine. Obviously, it's their imperative to do what they will. But I think even Ruby Walsh, I think I saw an interview with Max McNeil that Ruby said to them, surely you're running him in the Martin Pipe because he'll just win it. But seemingly, even if Ruby can't convince him, I'm not even going to try. I think my voice will.
I think you're a bit in. You've gone a bit.
Did I cut out again there?
Yeah. Just one sec. So I haven't even mentioned the name of the horse, which is 3-Card Bragg. But yeah. So you've done him. You've got another one though.
Yeah, Iroko would be the bigger one. He's at a bigger price, and I don't think JP really has a standout for this in the Irish yards, which he normally would. Like, you normally have a progressive novice, which you can probably send to this. I don't think he has one this year. So this leads me to Iroko, who, with Oliver Greenall and Josh Guerrero, who is having a sneakily very good season. I think he's had 51 winners so far, and it hasn't really been mentioned, but in a stable tour recently, he said this is his stable star. Like, this is the best horse in the yard by some distance. They absolutely love him. And I think this looks to be the plan, because in the last few hours, he's been very well backed for this race. Like, he was 17.0 across the board. He's now as short as 11.0 in places. So I don't know what's been said. or if there's confirmation that he's going, or if there's been a good booking, because we know JP will be able to book a very good conditional for this, but seemingly they like him. And this horse came to England as a huge reputation, was meant to be a very good juvenile hurdler, was thrown in at the deep end, didn't quite work out, but came back a reformed character after a break and stepped up to 2.5 miles. Absolutely bolted up at Wetherby last time out. Admittedly, I know a lot of people won't think Wetherby form will apply much to Cheltenham, but it was a decent race for the grade, and he absolutely bolted up. Like, he carted away at the end. This is a horse on a steep upward curve. If he does go here, I think he's got a live chance.
That's Iruko. Deasy.
Blue Sari.
Yeah, apparently he'd been retired earlier in the season, so I'm not sure.
I had my go already.
Oh, you did, didn't you? Sorry, yeah. I just like the way that somebody said I nearly choked on my chips. Blue Sari. Steve, who do you like?
Another Gordon Elliott horse. He's got a good record in this race, and he's got another huge amount of entries. But Saf, what are you laughing
so excited, aren't you, Steve? You're so
what are you laughing at?
Just you can't contain yourself.
Oh, sorry, what do you want me to do? Start juggling while I'm trying to
I'd like to
tell
see
you
that.
what I think is going to win the race. Safure won a grade 3 last time at Thurles, having won a couple of novice races, and this would be the handicap debut. Light soft ground, jumps well, and I think that's a good thing for a novice, especially going into a race like this, because it's only run 4 times over hurdles, and I think he's got a good chance as any, and he's bound to have a decent rider, one would imagine.
I do remember someone earlier saying Mai Tai for this race. My God, Mai Tai. How that horse hasn't won a handicap, given that he's so well. I don't know. They've just. Harry Fry walked away from Cheltenham the other day basically saying, I've bollocksed it. And he was absolutely furious. Anyway, he's bumped into so many horses. There you go. Right. Are we done there? We are, aren't we, on the Martin Pipe? We're going to do best long shots now. Matt Toombs, your best long shot.
Good time, Johnny. Looks to have been well plotted up for the Pertemps final, and he's still a juicy price.
Okay. Steve?
The suspense is killing me.
It's just so good.
Well, I got to remember what order I put these in. Best long shots, Bear Gills, Pertemps final. Yeah, he's got a good chance, and he's 26.0, something like that.
Frere Bamboo for me, which is probably going to go out in the best bets by a few as well. Dan, you've just made the case for yours.
Yep, Iroko. I'd grab that 17.0 while you can, because it seems to be going.
And DC.
Cloudy Glen in the Ultima.
Okay. That's it for best long shots. Best lays now. I didn't get mine in time, so there we are. Matt Toombs, your best lay.
Best place late is Run for Oscar to keep up the trend of Cesarovic winners bombing out entirely at the festival.
Okay, yeah, best place lays these. Steve?
Shoot first in the Pertemps, because I think the rain will not be to his liking.
Okay, DC?
It is Stumptown in the Kimure.
Okay, Dan Overall?
2, Campron in the Coral Cup. I know everyone loves him, and I backed him for it last year, but to me, he's looked like a horse who's just out of love with racing. Had a few bad experiences over the fences, took a nasty incident when he was over hurdles. I just don't think he's in love with the game currently, and he's far too short for a race of the Coral Cup's nature. And Spanish Harlem is also just far too short, based on the fact that Willie Mullins said he's a dark horse to note for handicaps, and everyone seemed to think that means it's a good thing. But for what he's actually achieved on the track, he shouldn't be nowhere near like 6.0 for the Martin Pipe. Way too short.
Okay, mine's So Scottish for the plate. He's such a short price, all on connections. I think. I think it's way more open than that. He's about 5.0. Best bets. Reminder that it's double your odds on the best bets. You've got to use the bonus code podcast for that. Double your odds on the best bets. Every best bet we put up for new customers only. Matt Toombs.
Well, I hope we don't get a similar shock, because we got in the Grand Annual with a lot more horses than expected being confirmed when we get them through for the plate tomorrow. Ferrero Bamboo's off 135 there. Assuming he gets the line up, I think we've got a cracking chance.
Yeah, I hadn't even considered that this horse wouldn't run. He's mine as well. Ferrero Bamboo up Venetia in the plate. That sounded wrong.
Another clip.
Apologies, Venetia, if you're watching. Steve.
Yeah, she's not, Tom. She's not. HMS Seahorse in the Coral Cup.
Dan Overall.
Sharjah in the county hurdle.
Deasy.
Corach Rambler in the Ultima.
Good stuff. I thought that ended really well.
Yeah.
Everyone.
Corach
Tremendous
Rambler.
fun. Matt, thanks for all of those trends. Great stuff. Head to Insights to read all of Matt's columns. You won't do wrong by those. Head to Insights for all of the bets that are going up. They should be up probably tomorrow. Give Dan Hussey a little bit of a break. Thanks to him for putting all this together. Like and comment Cheltenham to enter a draw in capital letters to win a £50 Cheltenham free bet. That is for existing customers only. Everybody say bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
See you.